TransByDef, this is Christine Faith Spencer. I am your Wednesday host, and this week we are talking about restrooms. It's a difficult topic that we're facing. Just in the news this past week, a trans person was harassed in New York City, and their boyfriend came to their defense and ended up getting slashed by somebody who was homeless and not maybe all there mentally, from what some of the news reports are sort of sounding like now. But they recognized a trans person and thought it was wrong that they went into the women's restroom. And so there was some harassment going on, which turned into a fight, which turned into razor blades. And somebody could have died. Last year there was the issue of Chrissy Paulus getting beaten at McDonald's because somebody didn't like that she tried to use the women's room. I will say that those are outliers. They're not the norm. The norm is, across the country, 1 million or more trans people, roughly, use public restrooms every day. And they don't have any real problems. They might get a dirty look. They might get a comment or two. But for the most part, we blend in. We work within society. And we don't have a whole lot of problems. Despite what certain people against us might say, we're not a threat. Very, very, very rarely have any trans people of any sort been a threat. Now, there's been men who have dressed up as women who have gone into bathrooms with the intent of doing things. But men do those things anyway. And it's always trans women that are the ones that are a threat. It's always trans women are a threat to women in their restrooms. It's never trans men are a threat to men in their restrooms, because trans men are considered women. And women in a men's restroom, it's not a threat. It's the men in the women's restrooms that's the threat. And we are wrongly judged, wrongly perceived. We are the only ones that are. And for the most part, throughout the country, we don't cause any problems. In the states that have trans protections on the law, you don't hear about trans women doing things pretty much ever. And when you do, I guarantee you every single trans person in the state cringes at the thought, because it puts all of us at risk. And I don't think any one of us wants that. So, as far as the bathrooms go, my personal experience, I used the men's room up until the time that I publicly transitioned. In fact, I used it after I publicly transitioned until the time that I did my name change and my gender marker change on my driver's license. That was about 6 months, maybe a little more, after I did my public transition. So for 6 to 8 months I used the men's restrooms, primarily at work. And I never had a problem. And then I switched over to using the women's restrooms. And I've never had a problem. And that's been for a good 6 months now. I don't pass particularly well. My voice is a dead giveaway. Most people know that I am transgender. If they don't know that I'm transgender, they're just not paying attention, which is great. But my assumption is that most people probably know that I'm transgender and don't care. And that's probably going to be the case for most people. With that said, I've had friends that have been harassed. I have had friends be assaulted in restrooms. and there's a risk. To minimize those risks, there are some pretty basic precautions that I'm going to advise you of. First of all, if you can find a single stall restroom, a unisex restroom, or a women's room, women's or men's, that's just one stall, one door that locks, that's great. And we have a website that's being created by trans people called safetopee.org, I believe. But just do a Google search for Safe2Pee, and I'll put a link down below. Use that resource. Fill in the database, help get it populated, and make a difference for people that are in early transitions, even if you're perfectly comfortable using the women's public restrooms with multiple stalls. And if you're not, use it for yourself. Go places that are more comfortable to you. There's no problem with that. At my work, they're working on having either identifying those gender-neutral bathrooms that are there because they're single stall, or possibly labeling some of the other ones as gender-neutral, even though they're multiple stall. So the expectation is there could be men or women coming in and out. In Europe, that's relatively standard practice in some places. And, for the most part, people aren't rapists, and they aren't, people that are going to assault you. The vast majority of people are good people, and they'll try to do the right things. So you probably fear those sensationalized outlier cases, which you may encounter from time to time, but you probably won't on an average day. Maybe even in an average year, or 2, or 3, maybe in your lifetime. If you do encounter somebody who behaves irrationally, reacts with great fear or great anger, who you can't talk to, you can't reason with, it's best for you to leave. It doesn't matter if you have every right to be there. It doesn't matter, whatever your reasons are. It's best for you to leave for your own safety, for your own sake. Sometimes being right is not as important as being alive, or at least being safe. So, if you get in that situation, run. I've never been in that situation. Running may not be easy, and if your judgment is clouded because of drugs or alcohol or any other reason, you should have a friend with you. And if you can't have a friend with you, you shouldn't be doing drugs or alcohol in public anyway, because you're likely to end up in jail. Be safe. We are more at risk as a population, and being alone increases that. And if you happen to be a minority, your risk is exponentially more than the rest of us that are Caucasian, or even Hispanic. The risks are lower. If you happen to be black, you're in much more risk than the rest of us. Be much more careful and be safe, because you are important. It's not worth it. You're too important to put yourself at risk. Once you start hormones, no matter how much training you've had, no matter how strong you think you still are, you are weaker than a man. You should assume that you are weaker than a man. Do not engage them. It's your safety. Be smart. If you're finding that you're getting a lot of problems with people frequently, ask yourself if it is your clothing. It's not my job to tell you how to dress or what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, because heck if I know. But maybe it is your clothing. Maybe it's a certain mannerism, something that you're doing that's causing people to be more concerned. Or maybe it's just a really intolerant area that you live. I can't possibly imagine what. But if you can change something that might help you, hey, we would work for a reason. It's for our own safety. It's for the safety of those around us that we care about. You know, the case this week where the person was slashed, it wasn't the trans girl that got slashed, it was her boyfriend protecting her. She was trying to get out of the situation, but he felt justified and right about defending her. That's a great man, but a really stupid one. Wasn't worth it. The other person, they weren't all there. Or at least that's what it sounds like. You know, we've got to make good decisions for ourselves, and that's my advice to you. Don't be overly fearful. Don't change being yourself to accommodate others. But, you know, do change how you interact with others if you can, to the best of your ability. And I'm not sure if that fully makes sense to you, but I hope it does. The difference is, you know, be yourself. Don't be afraid to be you. But when you encounter one of those people that's just so intolerant of you that your safety is at risk, it's okay to run. There's no shame in it. Let them make fun of you as you go. They're bullies. They'll always be bullies. If it happens at work, go to HR. If it happens at school, go to the school. There's no reason for that. If your work doesn't support you, you're in the wrong state, leave the state, because the state sucks. I live in Illinois. I have trans protections. There are something like 16 states that have trans protections on the law, on the books. And if you're finding your state's too dangerous, get out. There's no reason to be there. They don't deserve you. Doesn't matter if you have a good job. You can find a good job elsewhere. Try. Do what you can to protect yourself and keep yourself safe, because you're too important to get hurt. Probably have a few pictures this week. They'll follow this, and I'll see you next week. Bye.